Mark Thompson owned a well-known restaurant called Savory Haven in Austin, Texas. At 50 years old, Mark had spent many years perfecting his cooking and creating a special menu that attracted food lovers from all over the city. The restaurant wasn't just a place to eat, it had a cozy, friendly vibe that made it feel like a place for an unforgettable experience. Mark's head chef, Ethan, was incredibly talented. At 38, he had a sharp mind and great taste in food. Mark trusted Ethan completely, knowing they both wanted the restaurant to succeed. Together, they built a strong reputation that made Savory Haven stand out from other places. But a year ago, a new fast food spot called Quick Burger opened nearby, offering cheap, fast meals. It started pulling away many of Savory Haven's regular customers. Mark first thought the new fast food place was just a trend that would fade, believing his customers would come back to his high-quality food eventually. But as months went by and business kept getting worse, he started to feel there was something more serious happening. One night, after a particularly slow evening, Mark stayed late at a restaurant to look over financial records and customer feedback. The numbers were bad, and the reviews were even worse. Customers were complaining about the drop in food and service quality. Mark was confused about how things had gone so wrong so quickly. Determined to find out what was happening, Mark began watching the kitchen more closely. He saw small changes, different ingredients being used, dishes taking longer to make, and poor coordination among the staff. He had a bad feeling, but couldn't figure out what was causing the problem until one crucial night. That night, Mark decided to confront Ethan. He had seen the chef making changes to the menu without permission and handling ingredients differently. As Mark got close to the kitchen, he overheard a heated conversation between Ethan and another staff member. "Just follow the plan," Ethan said. "Once we're out of here, this place will fail, and I'll be starting fresh at a new place." Mark felt a deep shock. Ethan had been sabotaging Savory Haven to get a job at a competing restaurant. It hit him hard that the person he trusted the most was causing the restaurant's problems. Mark was filled with anger and betrayal but knew he needed to act fast. The next day, Mark fired Ethan on the spot. "I trusted you, Ethan. How could you do this?" Mark's voice was filled with emotion. Ethan didn't apologize. He just shrugged and walked out, leaving Mark to deal with the mess. Even though Mark had fired Ethan, the damage was already done. The restaurant's reputation was ruined, and Mark was deep in debt. To save his dream, he decided to sell the restaurant. With a heavy heart, he got ready to close Savory Haven for good. As he walked through the empty dining room for the last time, he felt a deep sense of loss. This restaurant had been his passion and life's work, and now it was all slipping away. With tears in his eyes, Mark stepped outside to the back alley and saw some movement in the shadows. He cautiously approached and found a woman and a young girl huddled there, clearly in distress. The woman, named Sarah, quickly apologized and explained that she and her 6-year-old daughter, Emily, had been using the alley as a temporary shelter. They had been getting food from the waitresses, but now that the restaurant was closed, they had no place to go. Mark's heart ached as he realized they were homeless and struggling. Seeing their situation, Mark felt a strong connection to their struggles. Moved by their plight, he made a quick decision. "Stay," Mark said gently. "You can't help me clean up the restaurant, and in return, I'll give you food and a place to stay." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "Are you serious?" she asked, holding Emily close. "We don't want to be a burden." "Please," Mark said softly but firmly. "You and your daughter need a safe place, and I could use the help to get this place ready before I sell it." His voice faded as he felt the weight of his decision. Sarah looked at him, trying to see if he had any hidden motives, but all she saw was genuine kindness. Slowly, she nodded, a small smile appearing on her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "This means so much to us." So, Sarah and Emily made themselves comfortable in the quiet, empty restaurant, working hard to clean and organize it. Mark was impressed by how well and carefully they worked, and over the next few days, he felt a sense of hope in the midst of his troubles. Mark watched in amazement as Sarah and Emily brought new life to Savory Haven. In just a few days, the once dusty dining room started looking great again. Sarah's careful work and Emily's lively energy transformed the place. They cleaned every corner, organized the kitchen, and polished the silverware. Mark felt a new sense of hope seeing their efforts. One evening, after a long day of work, Mark sat her down with Sarah to enjoy a simple meal she had cooked. The smell of the food brought back memories of better times. "This is delicious," Mark said, taking a bite. "You're a great cook." Sarah smiled and blushed. "Thank you. I used to cook a lot before everything went wrong," Sarah said, her voice trailing off with a hint of sadness. Mark was interested in her story but didn't want to push. Instead, he shared a bit about himself. "This place was my dream. I spent years making it special. And then Ethan, he betrayed me." Sarah looked at him with sympathy. "I'm sorry. Betrayal is really tough. My husband, Dan, left us. One day, he just walked out, leaving me and Emily with nothing. We lost our home and everything. I've been trying to find steady work since, but it's been hard." Mark felt a deep connection with Sarah. They both knew what it was like to have everything taken away. "I understand," he said softly, "but you're strong, and you're doing an amazing job here. I couldn't have asked for better help." As the weeks went by, Mark, Sarah, and Emily grew close. They worked hard every day, slowly turning Savory Haven around. Mark was impressed by Sarah's cooking skills. She had a natural talent for mixing flavors and making delicious dishes. One day, as Mark watched Sarah cook, he had an idea. "Sarah, how would you feel about becoming the head chef when we reopen?" Sarah was surprised. "Me, a head chef? Mark, I don't know. I've never worked in a professional kitchen before. But you're talented and care about this place. I think we can bring Savory Haven back together," Mark said firmly. "Please, think about it." Sarah was hesitant, but the hope in her eyes was clear. "I'll think about it. Mark, thank you for believing in me." With renewed motivation, they kept working. As they got ready to reopen, Mark sought out investors to get the financial support needed to fully restore the restaurant and attract customers again. The big day finally arrived for the investors' visit. Mark was nervous, but excited. This was their chance to save Savory Haven. When the investors arrived, Mark and Sarah greeted them warmly. They showed off the newly renovated dining area and all the improvements they had made. The investors seemed impressed, but the real test was Sarah's cooking. Mark watched nervously as the investors tasted Sarah's dishes. He saw their faces go from doubtful to thrilled. Michael Carter, a well-known businessman, was especially excited. "This food is amazing," he said. "The flavors, the presentation, everything is perfect." Just as Mark started to feel hopeful, the door opened, and John, Sarah's ex-husband, walked in. He saw Sarah and Emily, and his face showed shock and anger. "What's going on here?" John shouted. "Sarah, get over here with Emily now." Sarah frowned, scared. Emily hugged her tightly. Frightened, Mark quickly moved to stand between John and Sarah. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Mark said firmly. "This is my restaurant, and I won't tolerate any abuse or harassment." John smirked. "Oh, I'm not leaving. In fact, I'm about to make you an offer you can refuse. This place is a gold mine, and I want in." Mark was furious. "I think you've forgotten something," he said through clenched teeth. "This is my restaurant, and I don't tolerate threats to my staff." John laughed roughly. "We're staff. That woman over there is my wife, and that little girl is my daughter. I have every right to be here." Before Mark could reply, Michael Carter stepped forward. "Well, Mr. Thompson," he said calmly, "it looks like you have a tough situation, but I believe in what you're doing. I'd be happy to invest in Savory Haven, with one condition." Mark felt a spark of hope. "And what's that?" Michael smiled at Sarah and Emily. "I want Sarah and Emily to stay on the team. Their work here is invaluable, and I won't have it any other way." Mark nodded firmly. "Done. Thank you, Mr. Carter. This means everything to us." John's face showed his anger, but he knew he had lost. Muttering curses, he stormed out of the restaurant, his plans to take advantage of it falling apart. As the investors finished their deal with Mark, he felt a huge sense of relief and gratitude. Thanks to Sarah and Emily, Savory Haven had a future again. With the investment secured, Mark, Sarah, and Emily worked hard to restore Savory Haven. The restaurant transformed beautifully. The dining area was updated with warm colors and elegant furniture, creating a cozy and stylish atmosphere. The kitchen was now a modern facility perfect for Sarah's cooking. As they worked together, Mark and Sarah became closer. Their shared experiences and respect for each other turned into a strong friendship. Emily's energy and laughter brought a feeling of joy and family to the restaurant. It was a time of hard work, but also of healing and new beginnings. Mark continued to be impressed by Sarah's cooking skills. Her creativity and love for food showed in every dish she made. One afternoon, while they were finalizing the new menu, Mark turned to Sarah. "You know, Sarah, I've tried food from some of the best chefs in the world, but none of it compares to yours. I'm really lucky to have you here." Sarah blushed and smiled. "Thank you, Mark. That means a lot to me. I never thought I'd get this chance again." Mark nodded, looking serious. "And I never thought I'd find someone who could save this place." They were a team now, and Mark knew they could make Savory Haven better than ever. The day to reopen finally came, and the restaurant was full of excited diners. Word had spread about the newly improved Savory Haven, and everyone was eager to see what it was like. Mark and Sarah were both nervous and excited, hoping their hard work would pay off. As the evening went on, it was clear their efforts had succeeded. The diners loved the food, praising the flavors and how it was presented. The restaurant was buzzing with excitement, and for the first time in a long while, Mark felt proud and accomplished. While everything was busy, Mark kept glancing at Sarah. She moved confidently through the kitchen, directing her team. The energy in the kitchen was high, and the delicious smells coming out made everyone's mouths water. At the end of the night, after the last dish was served and the last guest had left, Mark found Sarah sitting at a table in the now empty dining room. Her eyes shone with a mix of tiredness and pride. "Sarah," Mark said softly, sitting down across from her, "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done. This place is thriving again, and it's all because of you." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes shining. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mark. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Mark reached across the table and gently took her hands in his. "That's because you're amazing, Sarah. From the moment I met you and Emily in the alley, I knew you were special. Seeing you lead this kitchen with such passion and skill." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I don't want to lose you, Sarah, not again." Sarah's breath caught as she understood what he meant. "Mark, what are you saying?" she asked softly. Mark then dropped to one knee, keeping his eyes on her. "Sarah, will you marry me?" For a moment, time seemed to stop. Sarah looked at him, her eyes wide with shock and her heart racing. She had never imagined that her life could change so unexpectedly. That the man who had helped her and her daughter would now be offering her his heart. Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she nodded with a bright smile. "Yes," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. "Yes, Mark, I will marry you." Mark sighed with relief and stood up smoothly, lifting Sarah into his arms. He spun her around the empty dining room, their laughter ringing through the space, a joyful sound that seemed to bring new energy to Savory Haven. As they embraced, Mark realized this was more than just reopening his restaurant. It was the beginning of a new chapter filled with love, hope, and a brighter future than they had ever dreamed of. 3 months later, Savory Haven was thriving. The restaurant's new look and Sarah's amazing cooking had restored its former glory and even improved it. Word spread quickly, and soon they had a waiting list of people eager to enjoy the magic of Savory Haven. Mark and Sarah had found a good balance between running the restaurant and their growing relationship. Emily, now a cherished part of Savory Haven, brought joy and laughter to everyone there. The once struggling restaurant had become a lively, bustling place, full of happy diners and the wonderful smells of Sarah's cooking. One evening, while the restaurant was busy, Michael Carter came in with a group of well-known local business people. Mark greeted him warmly and showed them to a special table. The excitement was high because this visit could bring new opportunities for Savory Haven. As Sarah worked on the evening's special menu, Mark felt a burst of pride. He watched her move confidently and skillfully, guiding her team like a conductor. Each dish that came out of the kitchen showed her talent and hard work. After dinner, Michael came over to Mark, smiling widely. "Mark, this place is amazing. Sarah's cooking is fantastic. We're all very impressed." Mark smiled back. "Thank you, Michael. We've worked really hard to get Savory Haven to this point." Michael thought for a moment and then said, "I have a proposal for you. We're looking to invest in some top restaurants to create a new dining experience around the city. We'd like Savory Haven to be the main one." Mark's eyes widened in surprise. "That's an amazing offer, Michael. I'll need to talk it over with Sarah, but it sounds like a great chance." Michael smiled. "Take your time. I'm sure you'll make the right choice." Later that night, after the last customer had left, Mark and Sarah sat down to talk about Michael's offer. Emily was asleep in a cozy corner of the restaurant, her peaceful face reminding them of how far they had come. "Sarah, what do you think about expanding Savory Haven?" Mark asked, his voice a mix of excitement and nerves. Sarah thought for a moment. "It's a big step, Mark, but I believe in us and what we've built here. If we can bring this same passion and quality to other places, it could be amazing." Mark took her hand, his eyes full of love and determination. "I couldn't do this without you, Sarah. You're the heart and soul of Savory Haven. Together, I know we can make this work." Sarah smiled, her eyes full of hope and determination. "Then let's do it, Mark. Let's take this chance and see where it leads." With their decision made, Mark and Sarah knew they were starting a new chapter in their lives. They had faced betrayal and tough times, but together they had found a fresh start and new possibilities. Their journey showed the strength of resilience, passion, and the power of love. As they looked around the now empty restaurant, they felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. Savory Haven had become more than just a place to eat. It was a symbol of their shared dream and hard-earned success. Holding hands, Mark and Sarah knew that no matter what the future brought, they would face it together, with Emily by their side, ready for the new adventures ahead.